I invite you to open your Bibles to John chapter 10. John, the 10th chapter. John, the 10th chapter. It's so good to see everyone here this morning. We do have many of our own here this morning and many visiting with us, and we appreciate your presence. We appreciate your interest in spiritual matters. I appreciate Brother Lewis's song selection this morning. Those are thoughtful songs. I Have Seen Your Glory, number 10. I'm blanking on the name of it all of a sudden. I've sang it since I was like 6, but whatever. Number 10, it's just such a thoughtful song. But appreciate all of that. Our memory verse, since we are now in the month of September, as we discuss Jesus as shepherd, from John chapter 10, verse 14. If you don't mind saying this with me, it's on the board. I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by my own. John 10:14. I've been careful to compile all the lessons that Russ and I have been doing with this kind of attitude in mind, and it seems almost as fitting now as what it did a few weeks ago when we started it, since school was canceled last week, and now we're starting again this next week. At least Lumberton is, so we're going back to school again on Tuesday. But those are all online too, if you missed one and wanted to go back to it. But I figured I would share that once more. I want to encourage you, John chapter 10, and we're going to begin reading in verse 1. And what I would ask of you this morning is to just listen very carefully. Listen very carefully to some of the statements that are made in this section. We're not actually going to be looking at this section in detail, but I want to just encourage you to listen very carefully and remember some of these little different things. So John chapter 10, verse 1. Most assuredly I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the doorkeeper opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And when he brings out his own sheep, they go before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. The sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger they will by no means follow, but will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of the strangers. Jesus used this illustration, but they did not understand the things which he spoke to them. Then Jesus said to them again, most assuredly I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. I have come that they may have life, and that they may have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd gives his life for the sheep, but he who is a hireling and not the shepherd, one who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming, leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf catches the sheep and scatters them. The hireling flees because he is a hireling and does not care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by my own. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. Now that context actually goes on a little bit further, but we're not going to consider all of those things this morning. I want you to just contemplate for a moment what Jesus says in that passage. He is the good shepherd. I don't believe you've got to look very far in our world today to see an absolute lack of leadership. And if you wanted to think about it in a national sense, we see our shepherds around us in this world who are not leading the nation, who are not leading the nations of the world. And this has been a reoccurring problem always. You go back into Israelite history, and you can see a lack of leadership. During the cycle of the judges, they lacked reverence for their true leader, who was God, and they didn't see that. And during the United Kingdom days, where God established the kingdom under Saul and then later David, they still lacked a proficient leader who would constantly turn their eyes back to God. David did okay at times, but he wasn't perfect. And then the divided kingdom comes along. And they had no leadership really whatsoever. They had a few guys once in a while, a few kings who would turn the attention back to the Father, back to God, but not consistently. And they struggled from it. It's during that context of history where Ezekiel 34 was written, which Russ is teaching in the back right now, where God scathingly rebukes them for the fact that their shepherds of the nation had not been doing their job. He was going to just take and bring a new shepherd in who would take care of business. Well, we have a new shepherd. We have a leader. You look back through all of human history, and some of the greatest failures of humanity were caused from a lack of leadership. No direction, no provision or protection, no correction, no love, no compassion, no guidance. All because failed leadership. So what do we do with some of that information? Well, I think one thing we need to do is learn from history. Recognize the failure of human leadership. I think another thing we can do is appreciate the shepherds we have here. Because I think our shepherds do a great job. So don't sit here and think, oh man, he's harping on the shepherds. No, nothing about our shepherds. I appreciate our shepherds. But I think ultimately what this should remind us, folks, is how we have the shepherd. We have the shepherd who can lead us and guide us and protect us, and preserve us and provide for us, and many other different things that he does simply because we're his sheep, the sheep of his pasture. Maybe the question we need to consider is, will we accept what the shepherd offers? I'll tell you, this is one of my favorite discussions because it puts me right in my wheelhouse. I know livestock. Even though I don't cowboy anymore, and I don't manage a ranch anymore, and I don't take care of cows anymore, I know livestock. I want you to listen very carefully. Listen very carefully, and you'll know where I'm at. And then you can turn there. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Please turn to Psalm 23. That's where we'll spend the majority of our lesson this morning, as we consider some of the different ways that David describes the shepherd. I think that it's important to remember as we go through this that David himself is writing here in reference to God, but I think we can see how all of this fits so well with who we are as the sheep of God's pasture, the sheep as Jesus is our shepherd. Notice one thing the shepherd does in verse 1 and 2, he provides. See that again. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. You see how completely he provides for the sheep? The sheep say, I don't even want anything because the shepherd is taking such good care of me. You know, livestock have a tendency to not realize what they need. Do you not see that we do the same thing? This is why your dog hates going to the vet. Because the dog doesn't understand that it needs to go to the vet. We would have this happen all the time with cattle. I can still remember one cow, 206. Bringing her up the alleys, bringing her to the corral. We're going to take and give her some wormer and things that she needs. And what does she do? Me and Grandpa are horseback behind her, and she cuts to the right and runs straight through a fence. We got her another time. But we didn't get her that day. She got cut up and bloodied and all kinds of craziness because she didn't understand what we were trying to accomplish. See, the sheep can benefit greatly by understanding what the shepherd is trying to accomplish. By seeing what the shepherd provides and recognizing it's what I need. You notice how the shepherd provides for the sheep? I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures and leads me beside the still waters. You know, there have been a lot of studies done in agriculture, and they've realized that good food, fresh water, and gentle handling methods promote better health overall in the herd. There's been millions of dollars spent studying that stuff. And they've realized something that David recognizes here. I'm satisfied because of what the shepherd has provided for me. We're no different than sheep. You put good water out, not maybe in a bowl, but good water out, and you put good food in front of a person and you provide them with a gentle atmosphere, does their health not improve? Yeah. It's because we know what we need. And here stands David saying, the Lord is my shepherd. Look at what He's providing for me. I don't want for anything, and what He is providing for me is exactly what I need. He's leading me beside the still waters. You know, sheep are kind of flighty creatures. I've seen cows drink out of running water, but most livestock do not drink out of really hard running water because it scares them. Or they've got to get really used to it before they will try to drink it. David says he's leading me beside the still waters. This calm scene is being depicted here, folks, because the shepherd is taking care of the sheep. Do you struggle with being satisfied in this world? You ever stop and consider that maybe the reason so many people are unsatisfied in this world is because they're looking to be satisfied by something that was never intended to satisfy them? That was never intended to make them whole? Folks, there is no true provision away from the shepherd. You can seek to fill it with anything you want in this life, but it's not going to make you whole. Why do we see so many people struggling with depression today? Struggling with being miserable and unhappy? It's because what we really need, folks, is what the shepherd offers. Now, you think about this back to school stuff. I want all you guys going back into school to listen very carefully. A good education may provide you with a great many things in this life. It may provide you with means, and it may provide you with comfort. It may provide you with many pleasures that are okay. But no education can provide you with what you truly need. You can't get it from a textbook. You can't get it from a scholarship, and you can't get it from a college degree or a trade school degree or any other kind of degree. What you truly need is what the shepherd offers, folks. It's what the shepherd provides. The green pastures and the still waters. There with the shepherd. Folks, we've got to be very careful to recognize what the shepherd is providing for us. Now, this is a subtle thing, but I want you to see this. As he says this in verse 2, he says, He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. It's subtle, but I don't want you to miss it. See, the sheep, while they struggle sometimes feeling satisfied, they want to wander. Livestock just cannot stay put. This is why you drive down any rural road around here and you're going to see a cow out somewhere. Because livestock don't stay put very well sometimes. And then the shepherd has to strike the sheep. He makes me to lie down. That's not always a pleasant part of following the shepherd. But what he's trying to do is ensure provision. Ensure you're getting what you need. You think about, I know vaccinations is a touchy subject right now, so you think about maybe antibiotics. That shot you get, that's not very pleasant. Your dog sure doesn't like it. Neither do animals, neither do horses and cows. But we understand that it's necessary to help them get better. There's times this is going to step on your toes. There's times this is going to hurt your feelings. But it's also necessary as part of what God provides for us so that we can be where He wants us to be and be who He wants us to be. I don't know if we always appreciate to what extent the shepherd really provides for us. Did you pick up in John chapter 10 how many times he mentioned that the shepherd lays down his life for the sheep? By my count, twice. Verse 12 and verse 15. I may have missed one, but please don't correct me later. Lays down his life for the sheep. Because the shepherd understands he's going to do everything he can to provide at all cost what the sheep need. As David, who writes this psalm, as David fought with the bear. Remember him saying that? I fought with the bear. I've taken the sheep from his mouth before. Laid his life on the line for what was his to protect and provide for. Jesus is saying in John 10, I'm laying down my life for what the sheep need. Do we stop and appreciate what He's truly providing for us? And to what extent He has provided for us? Yes, folks. The shepherd provides. Number two, I want you to consider that the shepherd restores. Look down at verse 3. Psalm 23, verse 3. David says, He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. He restores my soul. Folks, I don't think I have to even explain or elaborate on this point very much. We are a broken people. And we live in a broken world. In fact, we're born into this broken world, and at some point we go and choose the broken. But what the shepherd offers, and I looked this up, it's not a real word, but I don't care. We can unchoose the broken. That's right. It may be a real word somewhere, but it wasn't in any of the dictionaries I found. But we can choose what the shepherd offers and therefore have our souls restored. Do we stop and consider what He's truly offering to us as the Redeemer we sang about, as the Restorer that we understand? Folks, there is a calm loyalty in animals to those whom they love. This is why your dog will stand at the dog food bowl all day long, because he knows at some point you're going to put food in that dish. All animals are that way though, folks. There's a calm loyalty to them. You could take and feed cows, for example, in one set of troughs every day at 7 o'clock. At 6:30 in the morning, you would see them start migrating towards that set of troughs. And if you didn't feed them at 7, they were still going to be there at 8 o'clock. They knew that's where food came from. There was a loyalty to them. Do you see what the shepherd's offering here? He's offering to restore your soul, but only if you will follow Him. Notice how David says this. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Do you not see what the shepherd offers? He leads me in the paths of righteousness. See, we can have confidence in Him because we know His past. We know what He has offered in the past. That's why your dog waits at the dish, because he knows the history of what you've done for him before. It's the reason the cattle will wait at the trough, because they know the history. You catch that? For His name's sake. We know who He is. We know the shepherd. We know what He's capable of. We know what He's done in the past. And therefore we should have this calm loyalty about us to recognize what He will do in the future. That He can restore our souls. Now here's where we need to be a little different than livestock. We've got to have the wisdom that the shepherd gives us to recognize the end goal. Have you ever taken, to stick with the illustration of food, have you ever taken and tried to feed your dog in a separate place than what you always fed them before? They're not as likely to follow you, are they? Well, some dogs will follow you to the ends of the earth for a biscuit, but those are Russian bear dogs. Rush around the house and bear down on a biscuit. But you take and they will follow you anywhere. Cattle are the same way. As long as they know you're going towards a set of troughs, they'll follow you to the ends of the earth. But if you're leading them somewhere and they don't know there's a trough that direction, they're not as apt to follow you. Are we the same way? Do we not see the end goal, where Jesus is taking us? Do we not see the path, the path that He's leading us on of righteousness, and His namesake is the bearing, it's the truth that provides all of it? Do we not recognize that? Do we not follow Him faithfully because we know where we're going? And more importantly, He knows where we're going. Folks, the shepherd restores our soul. Not only does the shepherd restore, the shepherd protects. Notice verse 4. He says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." Folks, there are enemies everywhere. In all directions you look, without and within, they're everywhere, and Jesus is our shield against it. He's the one who protects us from these enemies. He's the one who stands between us and those who would seek to kill us. I know that we like our protection. I know that we like our security systems, and we like to feel secure. But folks, only Jesus can truly protect us from the greatest adversaries that we face. No amount of physical prowess can protect you. No amount of governmental aid, no amount of guns and ammo or education or money can protect you against the threat that seeks to kill you truly. And that's sin. Now, I know this last 18 months has tried to distract us from that point, folks. But we've got to understand it. We've got to remember it, and we've got to reflect upon it, because we understand the greater truth out there, that sin is out to get us. COVID's bad. Sin's worse. Voter fraud, elections, current president, next president. The problem we face, folks, is a sin problem. And Jesus protects us. Jesus gives us hope through it. I'm not sitting here saying, don't misquote me, that Jesus is going to protect you from getting sick, and He's going to protect you from getting COVID, or He's going to protect you from any other number of things I just mentioned. No, what Jesus provides you, folks, is the protection against sin, and He provides you with the hope of a life to come. The shepherd, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. That is not cute kitty cupcake land. We are walking through a war zone. In fact, I've heard it described as we live in enemy territory. We are living in an active war zone, folks. The valley of the shadow of death. But notice how David says, I will fear no evil. I'm not afraid of all this stuff out there because I understand who's walking with me. I see who's guiding me through it. We can trust the path because He's in front of us. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. The rod and staff that He uses to correct us, the rod and staff that He uses to drive away enemies, He's there protecting. Protecting those who are of His. Do we see how the shepherd protects us? Paul said, take up the shield of faith. Faith in what? In Jesus, folks. Faith in who He is and what He's done and what He's promised to do in the future, and the calm spirit that trusts in Him to do those things. Jesus blazes a trail for us to follow. Part of that protection is the animal trusting in the shepherd to do it. do you truly trust the shepherd to do what he's promised he would? Doesn't matter if I trust him. It matters if you trust him. Do you trust him to do what he's promised he would? To take care of you like he said he would. It is absolutely incredible to watch animals and what they are willing to do for somebody that they trust. What they are willing to do for somebody that they have a relationship with. You see, that's part of how you build trust, folks, is by building a relationship with this person. You can't be his sheep if you don't know who the shepherd is. And you can't be his sheep if you're not following and obeying the commands of the shepherd. You hear his voice, and you know his voice, and you come to his voice. This is why your dog won't go to everybody. Well, I don't know, some dogs do, but most dogs. I grew up with stock dogs. Stock dogs don't go to anybody except one person, the person who trained them. I had horses that you'd never believe some of the things you could make an animal do once it had developed a history with you and a relationship with you where it knew in the past he took care of me. He might be asking me to do something kind of tough, but in the past he took care of me, so I can trust him to go into the future taking care of me. I took a colt one time. He was half Mustang, and he kind of liked a buck. I took him and roped cows with him in the pasture, but I trained him. I could walk up to a set of concrete feed troughs that was about this high off the ground, and I could step him up into those troughs and walk down the set of troughs with him and crack a 9-foot bullwhip off of him, loud as a gun. He trusted me. I hadn't hurt him on purpose. But there was a relationship there. Folks, that's why you get on YouTube and watch how these dogs are trained, especially these guard dogs and tack dogs. There's a relationship there. And it builds that trust over time. You don't just flip a switch and all of a sudden trust Jesus. But what you do is you put your nose in the book and you figure out who he is and what he's done in the past, and then you can go forward trusting him in the future because you know him. And you know him better. Jesus protects us, folks, and we can trust him to do so. Not only does Jesus protect us, but Jesus blesses. I want you to notice chapter 23, verse 5. It says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over." Now, I want you to think about how he's describing this scene here. David is saying the shepherd has done his job so adequately. He is so capable in this regard that now I can sit down. I can sit down at a table and eat, relax, while my enemies are all around me. Because the shepherd took care of business. He says, "You anoint my head with oil and my cup runs over." How could it not? After everything he's described already, after the scene he's already depicted, how could this not be the result? Same can be said of verse 6, which we'll get to in a second. He says, "My cup runs over." I'm blessed in all capacities, so much so that I can't even contain it anymore. He sustains us and blesses us simultaneously. No one else can do that, folks. No one else can take care of you like the shepherd. You ever considered how he says, "You make a table before me in the presence of my enemies"? I always want to say mine enemies, like the King James Version there. You ever stop and think about what enemies he's talking about? You ever consider that it's all enemies? As David faced violent persecution, as David ran from King Saul, as David faced persecution and adversaries in his own family and his household, as his children rose up against him, David says, "I'm trusting in the shepherd, and he's taking care of me." We have a lot of enemies, folks. And Jesus can see you through all of them. Finally, I'll leave you with this. I started to try to think of a verb for this point. I didn't like any of them. So I just decided to put Jesus as the last point. Folks, Jesus is the shepherd. Now notice verse 6. As he says here, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Again, after the scene he's already described, this is the natural result, folks. This is what it's like to be a sheep to this shepherd. This is the realization the sheep has when he sees the shepherd. It's this praise and adoration. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. How could it not after what I've already experienced? This is again written by a man who had his share of difficulties, folks. But this is the calm understanding that I am a sheep in the pasture of my Lord. You notice how he says, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. David understood something that I think is very powerful, and I think in some ways is why he could write any of Psalm 23. Persecution, suffering, difficulties, agonizing pain are all physical things. Sure, there may be emotional side effects, there may be spiritual setbacks from them, but they are temporal in nature. David was going to live forever. Those things were going to stop. Do we live with that understanding and that appreciation every day? That nothing is going to get me down. Nothing is going to overwhelm me. Because no matter what this world may throw at me, no matter what level of darkness it may be, I may be walking through the valley of the shadow of death, but the shepherd is here. The shepherd is with me. Enemies may be political, societal, governmental, chemical, economical, educational, theological, emotional, medical, universal, local. I'm leaving the ALs now. Pandemic, endemic, disease, jobs, money, retirement. You know how long that list could go on of the things that we are burdened with in this physical world. But you know what every single one of them have in common? They're temporal. They're temporal. Not one of them follows us out of this life. Not one of them, folks. David said, I will dwell in the house of my Lord forever. Does that not impact how we should live today? To understand that that's where we're going. That's the trough in the sky. That was a terrible illustration. But that's where we're going. We're going where the shepherd is taking us. Do we recognize that? And let me say this too. Does your heart not break for those who don't have that hope? So what are we doing about it? The shepherd, the chief shepherd, who provides all of these great riches. Well, what we do with them is up to us. We can see this lack of leadership throughout history. We can see so many great problems in current events from a lack of leadership. Folks, there is no leadership like that of Christ. No leadership like that of Christ. And while others may struggle with the wolves of this world, while others may struggle with no direction, with no purpose, with no provision, with no correction, with no compassion, with no feed, with no water, our shepherd provides all of it for us. Are we truly living for Him? As the shepherd calls, the sheep hear His voice. Are you listening? Do you hear it? If we can assist you coming to the shepherd this morning, we would love to. If you're willing to come forward now as we stand and as we sing.